faster, young bad girls do it well. Live faster, young bad girls do it well. Live faster, young bad girls do it well.
Hello and welcome to the Dollhouse. My name is Kit Kowalski. I'm an Australian feminist researcher and blogger. I'm joined by my co-host, Edie Wyatt, who writes for The Spectator and whom you can also find on Substack. We're here to talk about sex, gender, and all the nonsense in the antipodes today. And we are joined by a very special guest, Stasia Frei, who, how can we describe you these days, Stasia?
You're a famous identifier of dickheads.
That's me. I've managed to identify another one this week, which is John Pesutto.
Yes, we've got lots of dickheads to talk about today. Stasia obviously used to run a very famous podcast called Terf Talk Down Under, and used to run kind of the very key gender critical Facebook group that really kicked off the gender critical movement in Australia, which is why I call her Australia's top TERF.
Stop. It's a bit of a pedestal to fall down from.
I call her that for that reason and because she hates it.
And also Steph, author and producer, and sort of driving force behind the excellent podcast Desexing Society that was released a couple of months ago, which you should definitely check out. So we're here today to talk about Deeming V Pesutto, which is defamation proceedings taking place as we speak. I think we're on day 4 of approximately 15 days anticipated evidence. We are all absolutely glued to the live stream.
We have been playing some of the stuff that's coming out of the proceedings, one of which was Stasia's speech at the Let Women Speak rally.
Hey everyone, I'm Stasia Frei. Don't be deceived by this unicorn horn. It's actually a female penis. My pronouns are dickhead. Only a dickhead, like the Victorian Minister for Equality, Harriet Shing, would think it's a good idea to put men convicted of rape and sexual assault in women's prisons. Only a dickhead, like the head of the Australian Sports Commission, Kieran Perkins, would claim there would be human carnage unless men are allowed to compete in women's swimming. Only an absolute dickhead, like Victorian Premier Dan Andrews, would claim that no one can point to a problem with regards to transgender laws. Well, Dictator Dan, I can point to more than several problems.
Just as a bit of background for that, the key contention of the issue, I'm not a lawyer, obviously, but Moira Deeming is suing John Pesutto for defamation. She's given him many opportunities to apologise. He has apologised to Kelly J. Keane and to Angela Jones for calling them Nazis. He's saying that it was a mistaken imputation. So he has refused to do that to Deeming, and he's doubled down. So he is, of course, the head of the Liberal Party in Victoria, which is the Conservative Party. And the Liberal Party in Victoria has been absolutely bollocked by Dan Andrews, who's one of the most left-wing dictators in the Western world. He has absolutely annihilated that state with gender nonsense. And he's also pretty much bankrupted the state. So he's left now and handed his poison chalice to, is it Jacinta
Allen.
Jacinta Allen. So, yes, some of the stuff we're going over is at a time when she was sacked. It was at a time when Dictator Dan, as we call him, was head of Victoria and the government was under a lot of pressure. Pesutto is a weak man, and she went to this rally, this Let Women Speak rally, where the Nazis turned up. Rather than stand up for the principles of the Liberal Party and for a woman who is able to associate, freedom of association, he caved to media pressure to get to take her out of the Liberal Party, which she did. So we'll talk about the way that's been portrayed by both Pesutto's defence and which we will call Dr. Collins, and Moira's defence whose name, can someone pronounce it?
Chrysanthou.
Chrysanthou. Ms. Chrysanthou, who is excellent, I think. She's done a good job. Yeah. And the association, they're trying to imply that Kelly J. Keane and Angela Jones are bad associations, and they also brought in Stasia's speech because Stasia is a known associate of Angela Jones through the program Turf Talk, which was mentioned in the federal court.
Yeah, unbelievable.
How did you feel about that, Stasia, when it came up?
My speech video, my dickhead speech. Look, it's amusing, but at the same time, I was lying in bed last night thinking, okay, how are they going to twist this? How are they going to twist this? It seems like the last 2 days has just been this like build up, like he hasn't reached the gotcha point yet, Dr. Collins, and I feel like that's coming. I'm worried that what he's doing is just wearing Moira down over these days, and then when she's like at her most exhausted, he's going to swoop in with all these gotchas, but we'll see. So I was like, well, why has he played that? How is he going to twist it? And I think the big thing is because I said we hate them because they're bullies, we hate them because they're malignant narcissists, it's going to be that is proof that women's rights movement is a hate movement. That's where I think he's going with that. And anyone who's on Twitter would know that there's that photo of me where I ran over and sort of was mocking the Nazis, but from that still photo, it kind of looks like it could be interpreted otherwise as some sort of evidence that I am condoning of Nazis. Even though at that point when that photo was taken, I hadn't even seen them do the Nazi salute and I didn't know that they were Nazis. I have a feeling that photo is going to be brought up and it's going to be linked to my speech somehow to like prove that I'm a Nazi associate or that I approve of the Nazi white nationalist message, which obviously I don't. So yeah, look, I'm a little bit nervous. On the one hand, yes, it was funny, but on the other hand, it's like it just feels like vilification is on the way.
Well, it's guilt by association, right?
Yeah.
Which is one of the things that we're going to try and we're trying to kind of wipe out in a liberal society. One of the things I wrote an article, it's coming out in Spectator, I think, today or tomorrow, about the way women are treated. The sort of perspective of the conservative media is to say that it's against conservative women, but it's an establishment thing. It's an elite thing, right? Anyone who speaks against the elite. And we saw at the rally, one of the things that you did see when your video was shown was that it went to the crowd. And they, as lawyers, are well aware that this is a predominantly left-wing movement. That we are separate, and that's the struggle is to separate what we are. And I think Moira's doing a good job of that because they try and she is being worn down, and he did sort of put in the implication in the last session about the anti-trans rally, the difference. We are not an anti-trans rally. That's not our thing. There was another group, a family first group or something, who have a different sort of framing of language about the trans issue than we do. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to connect the way that the Nazis talk about trans and the way that we talk about trans. And so the Nazis were there to protect us. And they're taking that issue, that sort of perspective. But my perspective in the Spectator anyways was that it really is women. It's a women's issue and a class issue. Because, right, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the way you spoke is a very working class. The way a lot of women speak, Angie speaks, is a working class perspective. And men who speak in that way, union guys, that politicians turn up to union rallies is never a problem. The way they speak about elites is disrespectful. They would call them dickheads too, much worse. but it's that sort of imputation that women, it's not appropriate for women to be speaking like this, for women to be associating with the plebs.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's this, I think that it's my sense that women also get punished for having a sense of humor. And because when you're taking the piss out of something, you're punching down, you're being mean, you're not being kind. So it's like women aren't allowed to have this sense of humor, satirize things, or swear. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
We have to be demure and kind and measured, and you've always got to be thinking about what is everyone else doing? What are those men over there doing? What are those men over there doing? Are those men coming for us? Are they coming for us? Can I leave the house today, or are the Nazis planning to do something in the vicinity of where I might be? You're always got to be thinking about who you are in relation to others, and like that and I think that's one of the reasons why Kellie J. Keane is a controversial and confrontational personality, because she deliberately says, well, I can't care about that. I can't care about what other people think or feel or how they react. And, that no matter what anyone else thinks, we still have a right to get up and just talk about what it's like to be a middle-aged lady. Like we still have that right, regardless of what other people are doing with their day. Yeah. So Moira's been giving evidence for, I think, 2 days now. She's been cross-examined by Dr. Collins, and so much of it is about other people's reputation. So much of it is about what she thought other people think. What did she what does she think that the Nazis think? What does she think that Kellie J. Keane thinks? What does she think that you think? And I don't know, it is hard to imagine that when if John Pesutto it gets cross-examined, that there will be that level of examination of what he thinks about what other people think.
Yeah.
I was thinking today when I was watching a little bit of it, I was like, oh my God, this is awful. This is, and I don't mean to diminish, I'll just say it reminded me of a rape case. It's like Moira is on trial here, which is what happens in rape cases. It's the victim who ends up on trial. And I was like, this is just appalling. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's issues of not just her character, but character. They're really, keying on Kellie J. Keane today, and who she's got photographs with, and whether Moira looked at the history, and whether Moira did her due diligence. And she said, well, I hired a lawyer to check all those links out, that she has a picture with these far-right figures that none of us have ever heard of. And even when they put up stuff from the far-right website, where this guy Thomas Sewell, I think his name is, his organization, and they said, you've seen this website, right? And she says, I don't think so. He says, well, I put it to you that you have to have seen it because you mentioned it in the meeting. Well, no, she mentioned the XYZ, and on Twitter you get snippets of things, because on Twitter we don't share far right. If we see that the far right are saying something, we might get a screenshot of it and say, look, this is what they're saying. But we don't actually share the website.
Right.
No, and Kit and I did an episode that week, and we had some footage of Thomas Sewell talking. And I remember trying to, wipe out the source. I didn't want to seem like that we were actually promoting or taking traffic to his page. These people we don't listen to. We've got no idea what they think. And I was shocked when I first saw that video, and Maura you could see she was the same when they played it, that they actually are proper Nazis. And that's when it first happened, we thought, oh yeah, Nazis, maybe they're Nazis, maybe they're not. They look like Kylie Minogue backup dancers. We don't know what they are. But then when I heard them talk, I remember being shocked that people actually believe that stuff in this day and age. But why are women more proportionately responsible for condemning that when there's nothing any of us have ever said that would be adjacent to that kind of extreme view?
It's like Pesutto's legal team and probably even the judge like don't seem to be completely aware that on the internet, like you accuse your opposition of being a Nazi if you're on the left, and if you're a conservative, you accuse your opposition of being a communist. Like this is just the state of affairs at the moment on social media. And like they don't seem to get that. I don't think the judge gets that. I hope that
No, they don't.
for him. Like I mean yesterday with the tweets that they kept bringing up, it's like this person has 300 followers and is like calling Kelly J a Nazi. Like, yeah, that's what happens on Twitter, for God's sake.
Although the judge did call it dross.
Yeah.
He said, this seems like such dross. Why are you going through? Like that guy was fully intending to go through every tweet that Scroats on Twitter had put up that we'd just said, go away to, or she'd responded to in some way. And maybe I think she's coming across as a little bit naive. And I think that's okay. She's a new MP. She's young. She's coming across as someone I don't know. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether to send a press release. I was asking. And then you hear the audio of the meeting and she's completely submissive. She's like, no, they're not Nazis. I know they're not Nazis. And he's now saying, well, how did you know they're not Nazis? Well, she'd been in the movement at that stage. I mean, she was in bio-reality, wasn't she, Moira Deeming? And I'd had a couple of conversations with her because her and I are both Christians. And we were kind of on the, suspicious list, as you are when you're a Christian. And there'd been a few bit of to and fro, hadn't there, between Christians and between other people. So we talked, and she'd spent years kind of really investigating the movement. So he's saying, well, how did you didn't watch this? No, but, she had been really doing her research about it for ages. And the fact that she put her stake in the movement and said, look, these people got the right arguments, this is the way we should go, is an act of courage. And this is her reward for being a courageous woman and saying, hey, look at these feminists, what they're saying is right. And she's getting rewarded with this absolute hounding.
The other class aspect to it is that she's not part of the career politician class.
No.
It's the same with Catherine Deeves, right? And so the Liberal Party was able to just abandon both of them and, in Moira's case, vilify her. But, the laws are going to be amended and repealed. It's coming. The Liberal Party in Western Australia have come out and said that they're going to, put an end to childhood medical transition. So it's like, well, when that happens, where's the Victorian Liberal Party going to be? Sorry, the point I was going to make is, as this comes through with amendments and changes to laws, these politicians are going to be saying exactly the same thing that us three have been saying for the last 5-6 years, except it's the fact that they're in the political class. They're not going to be, treated like scum for saying it. It's just infuriating.
When they say it, it will be the truth. When we say it, it's a conspiracy theory.
Well, what they'll say is that these are unintended consequences we've found these unintended consequences of this stuff in law. It's not unintended consequences. It's absolutely deliberate, and it's been strategically placed in the law for the purpose that it is actually enacting right now. So we do have a different perspective on that, and we do kind of act as experts in a sense, and they don't like that. They like to be the ones who've had the good ideas, and they like to pretend they don't see it so that when eventually it does come up as acceptable, then they can say, oh, look, we've discovered America.
It's been really hard watching. Like yesterday, by the end of the day yesterday, I was exhausted.
Yeah.
So and that, Moira must be exhausted.
Mm. Yeah.
On Tuesday, when they played the recording, the secret recording of the first meeting where they completely accosted Moira, in the middle of that, I had to get ready because I was going out to lunch. So I went away from my computer for half an hour. And by the time I got back, it was like they had bent Moira's perception of reality to such a degree that she was at the point where she was like, oh, maybe Kelly J. Keane is Nazi adjacent or supports Nazis. She's like, oh, I'm not sure now. I just don't know. I was like, oh my God, this is a Maoist brainwashing session. That's what we heard.
And there are some people in our movement, some of the more socialist elements, which is interesting that they bring up all the socialists. I mean, these are the Liberal Party, representing the head of the Liberal Party, which is conservative here, obviously. There are some people who will say that she does lean right, and she is popularist. She's very much a kind of a working class leader in the sense that it's a working class movement in its essence, because it has a class category and it relies on numbers. It relies on people coming together to support that class category in law, which is kind of the definition of, a class movement. So, but she does, I mean, she's put her weight behind Trump recently. She does kind of oppose mass migration. She has sort of come through most of these issues, but only from the perspective of women's rights. So that's not Nazism. Trump is one of the candidates. He's the Republican candidate for the US elections. So what we're doing is that we've got this left-wing rhetoric that's coming through. It's going through the media because the institutions in the media are pretty well captured by the left. So they're bringing these ridiculous tweets in court where, from Scroat 185, who said one thing on Twitter, and then they'll show a news.com article and they'll show a ABC article, even though that ABC article has been, retracted and they've said that what they've said is not true. Their argument is that her reputation was already ruined. So it wasn't John Pesutto which ruined her reputation. It was already bad. So that plays into damages. So you can't claim damages for someone who hasn't actually done something to you, that somebody else has done that to you. But what if they're successful in that? What they'll be saying is that if a woman's reputation is ruined by scroats on Twitter and then by left-leaning media, which happens all the time, right? What gets said about us on the media and on Twitter, then it's acceptable for the boss to sack you and to kind of say that because of those things are being said, we have to let you go from the party because those connections are being made. It's okay for us to sack you. It's okay for us to destroy your career, and it's okay for us to destroy your reputation.
And like that, it's okay for, like if, like rando Twitter guy calls you a Nazi, which happens all the time on Twitter. Like it's Twitter. It's very low quality of discourse. Yeah. And they all think that TERFs are Nazis or gender critical women are Nazis. That's what they say. It's how they discredit us. It's how they make us feel bad about knowing women don't have penises. So like he says that, right? And then the media, the mainstream media sort of pick up on it. And then they like repeat this lie. Oh, you're all Nazis. And then they superimpose a picture of Moira and Kelly J on top of the Nazis, making it look like they're in the same place at the same time, which they weren't. And then they repeat this lie. Like then you basically, well, you've got no recourse. Like these lies are just allowed to exist out there. And I don't know, I think that Pesutto had other options. right? He had other options. He could have just said, no, we're not going to bow to this pressure from the mainstream media. I know, Moira, that you are not a Nazi, right? And, we're just going to write it out.
Because she had these views before then, right? When she was a counsellor, controversial, she was already controversial when they adopted her as for the state to be a state representative for Melton. Is it Melton? Or is that the name of her council? Yeah. So she already was well known. She was very popular. She was popular because of these views, because she stood up for women, because she wanted single sex spaces. That's why they took her on. So they can't, and then she was made party whip. So they can't say, oh, we've discovered these terrible things. They knew what she believed anyways.
So I think I just want to make one sort of personal remark, which is that for me, having like this really strong lefty background, right? When I was growing up in my household, the Liberal Party pretty much were Nazis, right? And so they're sort of talking about her association with Nazis, and I'm just thinking, like, come on, they're the Liberal Party.
That's what they call you, Pesutto.
The lefties call you the Nazis. And then also I was just having a conversation or sort of a, back and forth with someone today on Twitter who was saying that CPAC are Nazis, which is the Conservative Political Action Conference.
Yeah.
And they kind of have, I mean, they seem pretty right-wing, but if you look at their values on their website, like those Nazis in the speech that we heard, they said, oh, we are revolutionaries, it's white men only, it's, white straight men, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Whereas you look at the CPAC values and they say, well, freedom, rights and responsibilities, opportunity, like it's not the same thing. Like you don't have to think that they're good, but you have to recognize that they're different. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, if you apply an intelligent sort of analysis to it, and the fact that if like Scroats on Twitter called me a Nazi, that'd be one thing. But if you called me a Nazi, if you came out on Twitter and said, look, I found out that Edie's actually a Nazi, that would hold a lot more weight because you're my associate, right? Because you're someone who associates themselves with me, and we're in the same movement. And you said, so the leader of the Liberal Party saying that you're a Nazi is not the same as a scrote on Twitter.
I made a tweet earlier today because one of the things that really jumped out to me from Tuesday when they played the recording of that meeting was Pesutto saying, we essentially that he wants same-sex attracted people, hetero people, and transgender people to be, that he wants the Liberal Party to be a voice for all of those people. I'm thinking, oh my God. And so I tweeted about this today, like, what that demonstrated to me is like he doesn't know how to play the culture war game that the Labor Party is waging. Like the Labor Party had this huge win with same-sex marriage, and now the Liberal Party just piss their pants every time like they get accused of being bigots or transphobes or homophobes or whatever. They just like drop the ball every time. They don't know how to play, and the only way that Pesutto can think to play the game is to mimic Labor. So I made that post today, like calling them Labor light, because that's what they are. It's just pathetic.
You can hear him on the tape. He's really, Dan Andrews had him on a string. Yeah. He was just a little sissy boy who Dan Andrew was playing with. Oh no, Dan's going to put this in the media, and it's going to be all over the place. This is what's going to happen next. They're going to call us all Nazis. They'll call us all Nazis. Have some balls, Mr. Pesutto, and stand up for women. And if you stand up for women, maybe people will be impressed, because he's just trying to win people that will not vote for him anyways. I mean, these are principles that are very old. We all learn about them in politics school when we went to politics school. You know, you're trying to win voters. You got to win your own voters and people who are going to and win over other people. These people who are trans rights activists, when people in the public service are being continually hounded by this gender stuff, you're not going to win them over saying that you're going to get more trans people in the Liberal Party, because they're not going to like it, because trans is not gay. Trans is not people pretending that they're the other sex, is not people who are actually attracted to the same sex. These are completely different things. And they don't understand, like we could hear that they didn't understand how they might dissect this in a way that people would understand it. No, you don't understand. Laura is not this. This is what her views are on these issues. And these are very acceptable views. She can go to rallies where people say inappropriate things. That's what people do at rallies. These are working class activists who will get up at the rally and call people dickheads. That's okay. We're not frightened of having people in the Liberal Party go and hear this speech. So yeah, he could have had balls, but he didn't.
The other thing about Pesutto is that he's quite short. I don't know if that's well known or not, but I think that does play into male psychology quite a bit. There was a study done of the height of male CEOs, and like I can't remember the exact figures, but it was like over 90% of them are above 6 foot tall, and Pesutto isn't. So
You're saying he's got short man syndrome as well as being a dickhead?
and the two are so closely tied.
Yes, that's right. Is that a far right? Have you investigated that? Now, I've got lawyer in my head constantly now. I'm thinking, every time I say something, I've got that stupid Dr. Collins in my head saying, and did you know this? Did you read that document? Did you read that document thoroughly? Did you understand this?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, like listening to courtroom evidence in the information age, because we've got evidence coming in of like just rando guy from Twitter said this. Did you read this tweet? Did you read this? And did you click on this hyperlink? It's like, who can answer those questions? Like, did you, and they're trying to make it sound like the neo-Nazis published a video, and that because they published it before a certain time, Moira, quote, had access to it and maybe should have seen it. But that's not really how the information age works. Like, there's so much content on the internet, unless you're specifically looking for something and you're specifically going to a website and you're refreshing and consuming content is the actual focus of your day. It's very unlikely that you'll just happen to notice, oh yeah, something became available, unless it gets sent to you. Which is kind of Eddie's point before about, people send screenshots of stuff and, or they send you things in Messenger, or they send you an email, or they send you like something. And then you might go and investigate it. Or you might be a busy mum of 4. She's a mum of 4, 3 or 4. And you might just not actually look at it any further. And you might not remember which link you clicked on and which you didn't. And you might, I don't know, you might not be tracking all of your associations, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a woman that she's doing a work thing with, so she's actually doing an event with. So Kelly J. Keane, not a best friend, not a life partner, not someone she's actually in business with, but someone she's doing an event with, who she met for a few hours. That woman's past associations, going on a podcast with someone who had associations, right? So what kind of fact checking are you supposed to be doing in your day-to-day life before you associate with someone, before you interview them, before you have a photograph with them?
I think women do that a bit differently too than men. I remember when Kelly J. Keane came to Australia and they were screening, people were screening everyone. And I said they could have asked us because we've already done the screening. We could tell you, because we do it in a completely different way. We say, how, what have you done?
Is this for the organisers? Their screening?
Well, remember when they had those, I got out of those message groups at some point, but they said they were going to screen people, and they were asking for references. You get a reference, which is a normal way to screen people. We do it for jobs. But in this movement, because it's a dissident movement, you do spend a bit more time talking to people, finding out where their background is, we'll find out. You don't want to get surprised. So I think we spend a bit more time, with people in groups talking. We go out to events, or we listen to what people are saying on podcasts. We don't necessarily say, oh, did you have a photograph with a person at a conference and that person ended up to be right wing? I mean, I still don't even know. They're using these names of these right wing guys. I still don't really know who they are. I assume, because they're saying them, I assume they've done some research and found out that they've got these, right wing, usually white supremacist views.
Well, another thing how this ties into class is I'm sort of vaguely aware of a bit of argy-bargy in the UK between the different sort of GC turfy groups. And what came up in evidence yesterday was a statement by Women's Place UK against Kelly J. Keane, accusing her of being far right, and just that, basically, like going on podcasts and having photographs taken with men who are supposedly have these far right views.
Also, she was critical of teenage girls wearing hijabs.
Yeah. I mean,
Which
look,
can be seen as a feminist view too, right?
it's a pretty far out thing to say, but at the same time, it's also, maybe 20 years ago, it was a very mainstream feminist thing to say, which is that Islam appears to be a fairly misogynist religion.
Yeah, look, the Women's Place UK stuff was pretty disappointing, and Kelly J's been on the tweets today saying, oh, look, here it's come up in evidence against another gender-critical woman in Australia. Well done, Women's Place UK. And she's right. She's right.
Like, this is, I think this is also a class thing, and it's a purity thing. Like, no one's got time for that. Like, I know. And if we waited until we only had the purest of the purest of the pure, we get nothing. There'd be no one here, right? So it's ridiculous. And what they have done, like, is protect themselves at the expense of protecting other gender critical women.
Yeah.
Like, that's exceptionalism. It's saying, look, we are the good ones. We're the good TERFs. We're the good GCs. And, those ones over there, don't associate with them. They're far right bigots. And what that means is that for a woman who is halfway across the world, because she's she's had an event with Kelly J. Keane, now she's got to explain the whole backstory.
Gender critical politics.
It makes it look like even your people reject this woman.
Yeah.
You are a horrible person because you're a GC, and even among those horrible people, you're rejected because you're that much more horrible. Like, it's
creating. And I'll tell you something funny. So I had lunch with someone on Tuesday, gender critical woman. She's of the left. She's like on the verge of coming out as gender critical publicly, but she doesn't quite know how to go about it. And she's saying, oh, I don't know about that binary group. Like, they're a bit, they seem a bit Christian right wing. And then she says, but Women's Forum, they're doing great. And and I'm like, did you know that they're against abortion? And then she's like, oh. And then also this particular woman is pro sex work. I'm like, well, the rad femmes are going to be pretty wary of you. And she's like, well, should I just start my own gender critical group? And I'm like, good luck. Yeah, so like there are all sorts of alliances. You know, look, it's the one thing we all agree on is men can't be women, and we need to get this stuff out of law. I'm willing to work with all sides, almost all sides, to get it done. Not with Nazis, though. I
Not
wouldn't.
with Nazis, no. And you know, you hear the way they talk about right wing, and Maura pulled him up a bit on that as well. You saying right wing, like you know that we're the Liberal Party, like because they're adopting that left wing thing where right wing's become a slur, and so they're saying, oh, you know, were you aware of these right wing associations? Right wing associations, like, is that an insult now? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, absolutely.
And another thing I wanted to note, I saw there was a thing on the tweets about, is it Andrew Gold? Is he the, he's the podcast bro, one of the podcast bros, saying some things about ultras. And my comment to him was actually the concept of an ultra, because he said, oh, I'm sick of these purity spirals and all this stuff. Well, actually, the whole ultra thing was a purity spiral. The fact that you're putting, which is when I saw it myself, I came and stood up for women saying very normal things, that they were making a political point of pronouns. And all of a sudden I was an ultra, and people were starting to say, and that's when you know, Rudy or whatever his name is was saying, this is what you think. Well, that's not what I think actually, but you're putting this view on this group, and you're putting them aside as a group within our group that is untouchable. So that is the definition of the operation of a purity spiral, that their views are not what we want. We're the better ones. We're the ones who have got the more accepting views for sex workers and because they love their porn, obviously, you know. So they want to have a space where they can't just say, okay, they're the rad femmes. They don't like sex work. They're the gender critical feminists. They don't like drag. They can't just live with that. They have to kind of, whenever you criticize something, they have to take it personally. It's a very man thing to do, isn't it? They're very sensitive men. Do you think men are more sensitive?
No comment.
Not my man particularly, but men in politics, I think like John Pesutto and people like that, they play a big game, but they're actually quite sensitive about, you know, when they're wrong. They don't like to have it pointed out by women that they're wrong.
I think that there is a key division here that I'm not sure it's really been articulated, but it's about the people, like it's about sort of the individualist versus the collectivist, or the people who say we have to. And I probably say we have to quite a bit, but versus the people who sort of say, like, you know, what I'm doing is this, right? And so, I think, yeah, like there are so many people who are like they want we to exist, all agrees on everything, and we all have to move in lockstep. And I just think that it's a very unwieldy sort of like political formation to get wait till everybody agrees on everything and then we'll do something. Whereas, you know, what we can do is all sorts of people of all sorts of different stripes. We've got the Christians over here, we've got the rad femmes over there, we've got, you know, all sorts of different people who want to do something and have a contribution. I think that's really what we need, is that pluralism that will kind of go into every aspect of society and say, hey, you know, in our little aspect of society, in our little group, we're just going to have biological reality and we're not going to pretend that women have penises. No, I think that that's the way it's got to have to happen. You know, that's going to have to go through sports. It's going to have to go through schools, P&C, churches, workplaces. I don't think that we're going to get to this totalizing everybody agrees situation.
Well, what we want it to be is to make it party policy in the Liberal Party, which is the issue here, right? They're saying this is not party policy.
There wasn't any policy about gender critical, and that's what we're hoping, is that party would represent gender critical beliefs. Sorry, Stasia, I cut you off there.
Well, I'll tell you what I've heard behind the scenes. These are rumours. So we know about WA Liberal Party are going to reverse the medicalisation of children. I've heard that the Queensland Liberal Party, when they get elected, they will do the same, but they don't want to make it an election issue because they think it'll be too distracting. And then last week, I also heard that a senior federal Liberal Party member told a meeting of Liberal Party members that they're going to do it at the federal level as well. They're going to amend the Sex Discrimination Act. So it's coming. It's coming really soon, I think. I don't know how Labor's going to go federally at the next election. I don't know what the opinion polls or anything like that is looking like at this point. But, you know, if the Liberal Party do get in, I think we might finally see some change.
Maybe they needed to be in opposition. Maybe we needed to have this debate. And that's what this court case is too. It's the playing out of this debate publicly as well. And I don't think it looks as good as they think it does to have her. We've heard her being bullied terribly in the meeting. Now we're seeing her bullied on the stand. We see that she's a woman who's not a natural lawyer or performs, you know, she's not getting up there being really slick and hitting all the points every second, although she's being very consistent and principled in what her core beliefs is. So he pushes her right to the point where he tries to make her say the wrong thing. And she says, well, no, that's not what I believe. That's not who we are as a movement. And so I think it isn't, from the public point of view, I know from these guys sit in their little Melbourne circle. And it's funny that they're teasing women about swilling champagne, because they're going to be down. I don't know if you have a Melbourne club or something. We've got a Tattersalls club here, you know, having their whiskey and smoking their cigars. And they're teasing women for having a little bit of a chat, a political chat, talking politics. So that's what they're doing. And he's saying, well, you've got conspiracy theories. And she's saying, no, well, the March Through the Institutions is a well-known political, you know, concept. Are you saying this is through the institutions? In the same courtroom, just about, probably the one across, because the door's in a different way, the judge used the word cis. So, yeah, it's through the institutions, because that's an ideological term. And his colleague in the other courtroom adopted that to change, to make it legal precedent that women can't have single-sex spaces. So, yes, it's in the institutions. It's not a conspiracy theory. It doesn't mean that we've got, I always talk about the guy with the cat in the basement. It doesn't mean there's a guy controlling it, a bald guy in the basement with his cat talking about it. It just means that it is in the institution. So I think she was pretty good on that, just saying, look, you know, we're women talking about politics. And it's like, it's framing it like these women, these stupid women, they're having this, you know, discussion about conspiracy theories because they're all right-wing sort of cookers, is what he's trying to project.
Wow, I missed that.
Well, that's what you said, but that's my interpretation. I don't want to be.
Yeah, so I think there was, you know, in afterwards when they were having that, you know, much maligned champagne and nibbles, it was really funny to
Makes me
hear
really want champagne and nibbles now.
the venom with which that phrase was
Yes,
funny.
the champagne video it's been called.
I think Kath Deeb said something about, yeah, it was you know, these, like, it's all through our institutions. And because Moira was just sort of, you know, listening, like, and actually part of the pleading or part of the response that Pesutto's lawyers have put forward is that, oh, sorry, no, I'm wrong. Part of the dossier the letter to expel dossier says that in the video, the women did not roundly condemn the Nazis in that video. And so that's what they've done. Like, they have failed to do something that they were not instructed to do.
So lame.
So it's like, well, it's not enough to just not be Nazis. It's not enough to just not have anything to do with Nazis. It's not enough to not be with them or anything else. You have to also roundly condemn them at every opportunity. Like
denouncing the devil, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you do it at baptism, I stand up and I denounce the devil. We don't even do that much in the Baptist church anymore. But it's like you got to get up and say, have you denounced the Nazis today? Kit, should we start our videos now with the denouncing of the Nazis?
I was gonna say, as the cool kids say on social media, did you stretch before you made that leap? Yeah.
And when someone talks, you do nod sometimes to say, look, I'm hearing what you're saying. It doesn't mean I agree with everything you say.
Exactly. Just back to the champagne nibbles and how dare these women have champagne and nibbles. I was at a conservative function. It wasn't for the Liberal Party, but it was a fundraiser and it was just full of conservative men, really. It was dominated by men.
How dare you?
This was back when I was still smoking cigarettes. Everyone, I'm a non-smoker now.
Well done. Congratulations.
Yes, I'm so glad to say it on YouTube for the whole world to know. Anyway, so I'm at this event and I go out for a cigarette and, I have to say hi to the other smokers and we're having a chat. And this conservative dude in his suit is sucking on a vape and it's ganja. I can smell it. It's ganja. And so then we all start talking about ganja and I say to him, so do you think the Liberal Party is going to legalize cannabis? And like recreational use, and he's just like, oh fuck no, that'll never happen, blah blah blah. But this is a conservative liberal guy, right? So something you said, Edie, about they can sit in their little bubbles and make fun of the women in that video for sipping on champagne, but half of them are probably smoking weed.
Yeah, that's right. And politics is not about that, right? It's not about I've got this view and I want it to be. It's about let's have a discussion, which is what they're doing, and decide what's going to be party policy. So Maura's off doing the thing. Like, she said she did 3 things. She had her maiden speech. It was International Women's Day, and she did this. So it made her look like she was a single issue campaigner. And she was coming and saying, look, I'm not a single issue campaigner. I've had these three things. And he repeated that to her as if it was an admission of guilt. Oh, I've done these 3 things wrong. Like she said that she'd felt like she thought that they'd said three strikes and you're out, and that's how she felt. She projected, her testimony obviously was inaccurate about the meeting, but you can tell how she was projecting how she was feeling. She was feeling marginalized because she was gender critical. And obviously you can see in their secret text or whatever, their other disclosure, that they were thinking that. And that's what she felt, and she projected it on the meeting. But yeah, she was incorrect, but that's what they were doing. They were thinking, oh, we've got to get this issue put in a box. We can't have this, because they actually do think it's anti-trans. They do. They've believed, they're so pickled and obsessed with left-wing media. They've actually adopted that idea that it is anti-trans. And so she has to keep correcting them and saying, no, that's not us. That's this other view.
And the thing that's really just appalling to me is the speed with which everybody has said, if you criticize pedophilia, you're criticizing the LGBTIQA. I'm sorry, but no one makes that, like, no rational person makes that leap.
No. And we weren't, right? I remember just immediately after they said pedo freaks, and there was a family rally there. So they could have been meeting, and he's gone to the website and found out what Thomas Sewell said. We didn't go to the right-wing website and find out what Thomas Sewell meant. We thought destroyed pedophilia. No, that's not us. And they were saying to us online, these are your people. We were saying, no, we're not talking about pedophilia. We're talking about safeguarding issues. And so that was when Angie Jones came out and made that tweet, which is a bit of a joke. Well, yes, of course we're against pedophilia. Why aren't you? You know, they're against pedophilia and they're Nazis. We're against pedophilia. Why would you be wanting to support pedophilia?
No one,
Doesn't
well,
make sense.
no one is for pedophilia.
No, well, some people are.
Well,
No one I want to speak to, I guess.
No one that you might be associated with. And the funny thing is, pedophilia is so common that a lot of us know pedophiles, have pedophiles in our family, have, you know, it's not, and just because you do, not that you, once you know they're pedophiles, you don't associate with them, but just because you do, that doesn't make you guilty by association. I mean, a lot of women have been sexually abused as children, so they have known a pedophile. They have had contact with a pedophile. But that doesn't mean just because someone is doing, and that's what I wrote in my article this week, just because a man is behaving badly in your vicinity, it doesn't stain. We don't do that anymore. We don't stain women with the behavior of bad men. But this is constantly what they're doing. They're saying, well, this is what these people are doing. And this person had a picture with them. So it's like, tag, you're it. Okay, they've had a picture with it. They're stained. You've had champagne with them. Then you're stained. It's such an old-fashioned way to deal with women in politics.
I just want to say, you know, watching yesterday, I was like, oh no, they're like demonstrating that the media had already was already saying that the Nazis were there to support the women's rights rally. That's what the media was saying, like on the Saturday, I believe, or the Sunday. And so they're trying to establish that, well, that means that it was the media that did this to Moira Deeming. It wasn't John Pesutto. And I started to get a little bit nervous yesterday, like, oh no, oh shit. Moira could lose this. And then I reached out to a friend of ours who's doing a law degree at the moment and asked her, like, well, what did she think? And she said, look, Chrysanthi is Pitbull. She's going to do an awesome job. Don't worry. And also that I missed like the first hour of it on the Monday. So I assume this was revealed in that hour on the Monday morning that Moira's team has some computer analyst as part of their one of their workers who and demonstrate how it was after Pesutto did what he did with the dossier, sending it out to all of the media, that it was then that it blew up that Moira Deeming is associated with Nazis.
I think that like one of the issues is that so firstly we've got to remember Pesutto apologized to Angie Jones and to Kelly J. Keane already, but he apologized.
He already said they were passionate women's rights activists,
right? And also that the mainstream media, including the ABC, had to issue some corrections saying, well, we shouldn't have made this association, right? So the damage is kind of already done in some ways, but they've actually already issued a correction saying that it was wrong to say that Kelly J. Keane was there with the Nazis. So it seemed to be from Pesutto that his line is, oh, well, there was this like threat to the perception of the party, right? And that the Twitter trolls were saying it. Therefore, it was his right and his duty almost to leak the dossier to the mainstream media, to give it to everybody in the mainstream media. And then after he'd done that, to go on to the ABC and other mainstream media and to go like on the 7:30 report and to call Moira a Nazi.
Yeah, that's not going to play well when they play that 7:30 report. It was very bad.
Yeah.
Can you confirm, is that like part of the evidence that, well, you've already apologized to Kelly J and Angie Jones? Was that part of it? Was that included? Have you seen it? Because I haven't.
I've heard her mention it. Chris Anthony, do you remember when they sent her out of the court and she said, what are you doing? This is not part of your pleading. You've already admitted, your client's already said in an apology that these people are not associated with Nazis.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know.
But what he's saying is we're not saying they are. We're not pleading truth, which is, you know, if you defame one of the pleads that you would say is truth, that it goes to damages. It goes to that or it was already out there. That suggestion, he didn't invent this suggestion. It was already out there. I think he's trying to limit damage to his house, frankly, even though I don't know if his legal fees are being back, because there's a rumor that Jeff Kennett, is one of the people that's backing him. So he is getting some backing from the more moderate line of the Liberal Party. Hopefully they will go through this. Hopefully they will start to think that they're wrong. That's always our hope in politics, isn't it? To hope that people are going to realise they're wrong.
So look, we should probably wrap up because I think they're hard again. The lunch break's almost over. We want to glue our eyeballs back to the
I've closed all my browsers because I thought if it comes back on, it'll go into my audio and I guess I could edit it out. But yeah, I'll be whipped.
So I guess I'd like to sort of close by just saying I think, you know, Maury's doing an amazing job on the stand. I can't imagine being in a position. I can't imagine being questioned on tweets she read at 11:30 p.m. a year ago when this insane stuff was happening in her life. You know, she's doing a really good job, and I think whatever you think of her politics, you know, spare a thought for the fact that she is, you know, going through a really difficult time, I think.
Because ultimately she's just a school teacher who saw this thing and said, no, I'm not having it. She's a very strong-willed person. But she's still, you know, trained as a school teacher. She's a mum, you know, and a reasonably conservative family sort of person. Do we want those people in politics or not? I think that's a question we need to ask. If women, is this what women are to expect if they go into politics and they have their own opinions? They don't just pull the party line, they try and influence the party line, which is what she's doing. She's trying to influence the party to take these principles on, to take these ideas on about sex being real in law, and kind of wind back some of the things that the damage the left have done to our law. That's what she's doing. But she's just a regular person. So we have to ask ourselves, I think, do we want these people in politics? And are we going to just accept that if they are in politics, like Pauline Hanson? I mean, I don't like Pauline Hanson one bit, but the treatment that she was given and allowed, we said, yeah, that's fine, because she's beyond the pale.
She's a right-wing bogan. So it's okay.
So we're on your side, Moira, as if it wasn't already obvious.
Thanks for having me, ladies. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks for coming. I'll edit in a bit of I've got this mashup of your thing that I'll put in at the end, which is just basically you saying dickhead over and over and over again.
It's good.
I should have worn my wig, my unicorn.
With the unicorn with your female penis on the front. Honestly, if people can't see that's a joke, I mean, it's a joke, which is what satire is. It's a joke mixed with reality. Yeah, it's a joke that you're calling Daniel Andrews an absolute dickhead, but he is an absolute dickhead as well. And you can say those things at a rally, at a women's rights rally. We're allowed to be rude. We're allowed to call people dickheads.
We are. Defend the freedom of speech to call.
That's
all right. Thank you very much, ladies. And we may be back next week with the news and views in the Aussie Genderverse. And thanks for tuning in.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye-bye, Dang.
Hey everyone, I'm Stasia Frei. My pronouns are dickhead. dickhead, dickhead. Harriet Shing, dickhead. Kieran Perkins, salute, dickhead. Victorian Premier Dan Andrews, dickheads in women's change rooms, dickheads. Sexually harassing lesbians and gays, dickhead doctors sterilising children, dickheads processing us here today. To Callum, Hannah, Mounty and all the dickheads like him, I say, stop being a dickhead, mate!
I'm a loped out gangster, set tripping banker, and my homies is down, so don't arouse my anger. Fool, death ain't nothing but a heartbeat away. I'm living life, do or die. What can I say?